gratitude is what it's all about, and grateful for that was intentional. Grateful for you being here today. We're going to talk about why gratitude matters so much, and especially at this time of year, people often turn to, thoughts of thankfulness and gratitude, and this is the season, as it said in the little flyer for our event that you joined. So a couple of things that we're going to talk about today is how gratitude will improve our lives mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and socially. And we'll talk about why, from a mental health counseling organization, our standpoint and positive psychology, why gratitude is so important to us. And remember several years ago, I was sitting in my office. So obviously it's pre-pandemic, although we've started to come back to offices, which is awesome. I love to see people in person, but I love the technology that gives us the opportunity to do this and meet from all over. And I was working with this man. He walks into my office and he sits down. We'll call him Bob. And Bob said, after our, this is what we do. This is why. I said, what are you here for? And he says, well, I struggle with depression and anxiety. And he says, if you're going to talk to me about gratitude, don't. And I was really surprised, because that's not usually the first thing that I go to in my mind. It's certainly a great principle. Excuse me. And Bob said, I am probably the most grateful, depressed, anxious person that you'll ever meet. And I thought to myself, wow. Not only did this intrigue me, I started to wonder, well, what does it mean to be the most grateful, depressed, anxious person? And so I asked him, well, tell me about gratitude. He said, well, I've worked with tons of counselors before, and, almost every one of them has told me that I should keep a gratitude journal, or that I should focus on gratitude. And it was then that I asked what he had been doing. And he says, well, I do. Every night I sit down and I write what I'm grateful for in that day. And he says, I've got pages and pages of things that I'm grateful for. And he says, but it hasn't really changed anything for me. And maybe you've had that kind of experience too. Today, we'll talk about the fact that obviously gratitude is important, but why? Simon Sinek wrote a book called Start With Why. And I had an opportunity a few months ago to meet with the man that helped Simon distill that phrase down and create that idea of start with your why. And the research is overwhelmingly positive and conclusive that says that I can tell you that I'm grateful for something, but when I can tell you why, it actually makes a difference. So as I recognize that there are many people here, that all of you probably have questions, that you are here for a specific reason, what I would invite you to do is to fire up your chat fingers, or raise your hands and say, hey, I have specific questions about this. And I don't claim to know all of the answers. I just claim to know a little bit of stuff that can be helpful for all of us as we look at why gratitude matters. And so I'll I'll cite some resources today that you might want to go check out if you are students of gratitude. Again, as I was telling you the story about this person that I call Bob, I started asking Bob, well, so Bob, why do you feel that you're this grateful, depressed, anxious person? And he says, well, because gratitude's not doing what I thought it would do. So if you've had that experience, here's an opportunity for you to do something different. Now, I will tell you that I would never share something with you, one, that I don't believe will change your life, and two, that I haven't personally experienced myself. And so I want to give an example of that right now. But as I said before, what I'd like you to do is, if there's something specific that you're hoping to get out of our time together, either put it in the chat, or raise your hand, and I'll invite you to come. And I realize that's kind of scary. People are like, oh, I don't want to be part of the video, but as Heather just said, well, we have the opportunity to take that out. So here's why gratitude matters, and I will tell you again as we go through some of this from the sources. So several years ago, there's a man by the name of Sean Achor. He wrote the book called The Happiness Advantage. And Sean actually was admitted to Harvard as a PhD student in psychology. And he had an experience where he shows up. And if you think about Harvard, we're talking about the elite of the elite. As far as students, professors, the programs that they have, I mean, Harvard is a fantastic institution. And he says, as I went into this, I realized that there were all of these other students, very, very intelligent people in this program. And yet I kind of looked around and it didn't feel like, wow, we're all so excited to be here. He said it felt more like, wow, if that person gets a better grade than I do, then they're going to get a better job, and my world's going to be horrible. And I'm going to share a model with you today that one of my good friends, a clinical psychologist, Dr. Paul Jenkins, has shared on YouTube. He's kind of a YouTube sensation in the positive psychology world that helps us understand this. So I'll explain that a little bit more later. But as Sean is in this psychology program, recognizing that these people are looking around and kind of seeing everybody else's, I'm going to say the enemy, my word, not his. We recognize that in our world, if we see things a certain way, it becomes the way we live our life. And that's why gratitude to me is such a powerful tool. So Sean starts studying this, and he comes up with 5 things, and I'll share those 5 things with you right now, because this is really where my eyes started to open, and I recognized not only the power of gratitude, but really how to help people who, for whatever reason, have been a certain place in their minds for a while, how they got to be there and how they could get out of there. And so Sean starts to do research. He goes to one of the psychology professors. And since that time, there have been several universities that have jumped on board, and they do these happiness things, these gratitude classes, and they have become classes specifically where people go, okay, how can I become more grateful? Well, why is it be important to be grateful? Because it changes the way we think, and the way we think drives the way we feel. The way we feel drives the way that we act. So one of my heroes, a guy by the name of Viktor Frankl, said the last of all human freedoms is the right to choose one's attitude in any situation. If that's true, ladies and gentlemen, and I believe it to be so, I promise it's true. The challenge is, how do we do that? Because we've all been in that place where we hear it and we go, oh yeah, you guys are here because you're students of these truths. And by the way, I'm not talking about my truth, your truth. I'm talking about big T truth. The truths that don't change. Gravity always works, ladies and gentlemen, because gravity is a principle that never changes. Truth doesn't change. Now, we all have this view and what we would call our truth, but the truth about gratitude is that gratitude done right will rewire our neural pathways and change our life. And that's what Sean's research shows. He's written several books, and I'm citing one of his first, not his latest. So it goes on even beyond this. But Sean said that if you'll do these 5 things. Now, occasionally I have the opportunity to teach at UVU as an adjunct professor, and I love being there. This is the challenge that I give to all of my students. And it's called the 21-Day Happiness Advantage Challenge. And Sean says, and you can go get his book if you want more specifics, but he says if you'll do these 5 things every day for 21 days, that you will actually change your mindset. Now, I'm going to come back to those 5 things. That's not a teaser, but we need to talk about mindset really quickly. And to do that, I'm going to draw on the whiteboard a really cool thing. And forgive me because I'm not a gifted artist, but hopefully you'll be able to see this. Uh-oh. I want to go to the whiteboard. Sorry about that. So what I'm going to show you right now is on the whiteboard, is this idea. Now, we have all probably had this experience in our life where we have had somebody ask us the question, are you a half full or half empty type of person? Now, because we're talking about big T truth, we're going to say that this is an 8-ounce glass. And for those of you who are physics majors, we're not talking about ionic bonding, okay? So this is an 8-ounce glass that has 4 ounces of water or liquid. And I'm going to suggest to you that some of you will say, well, I'm a half full. This glass is half full. Some will say I'm a half empty person. And I'm going to say that the truth is, and sometimes people get a little frustrated by this, but the truth is this glass is 100% full. It's half full of liquid in this case and half full of air. But even that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that we have 4 ounces of water, and we have a vessel that we can get more water that we could use to do something with. Now, some people say, well, why does that matter? Well, that's what I hope by the time we're finished today, that we'll all understand better. Because someone with a positive mindset isn't going to say it's half full or half empty. They're going to be able to identify the truth that this is what we have and this is what we can do with what we have. Now, I'm going to clear that and tell you what those 5 things are. Those 5 things that Sean says. Number 1, that every single day that you're going to wake up and you're going to keep a gratitude journal. So you're going to write down something that you're grateful for. Writing is a great way for us to connect our brain. And when we physically write something, we connect mentally, emotionally, physically to all of those things. Think about the times that you've read something or even been writing something and you had such a powerful emotion and you connected deeply to that. So writing is an important thing. Now, if you would rather type, you can do that. Just recognize that you may not have as significant a connection, but either way, I would invite you to do it. So he says, keep a gratitude journal. Number 2, write down 3 things you're grateful for and 3 reasons why. Remember, Simon said, start with your why. When you can identify why something matters, you connect differently in your brain. This is this whole point of mindset. Michael Jordan was asked one day, what is the difference? And you all know that Michael Jordan's a great baseball player. I'm joking a little bit about that. He played baseball, but Michael was wise enough to listen to his coach. And his coach said, I don't know exactly what he said, but he said something to the effect of, hey, Michael, you're a gifted athlete and you're probably better at baseball than most people, but you're really good at basketball. And so why don't you go play basketball? And so what happens is Michael comes out of retirement from basketball, retires from baseball, goes back to basketball and does amazing things. So at some point in his career, Michael's asked, what's the difference between a peak performing athlete and somebody who's really good? I'm going to interpret what I think peak performing athlete is. It means in the NBA, there's the elite of the elite. Michael Jordan is certainly one of those top performing athletes in the NBA. Kobe Bryant, Bill Walton, you guys, if you're NBA fans, you'll know the group I'm talking about. And they outperform a significant amount of their peers. And he said the difference between a peak performing athlete and somebody who's just really good is that the peak performing athletes develop this mindset. He said, if I miss a shot, I could raise my hand and say, hey, coach, take me out. I got to regroup. But he said the peak performing athletes develop a mindset that they can regroup. He says, if I miss a shot, I say to myself, I missed that one, I'll get the next one. That said, one of the things that I hope is important for you and I is that we recognize that being able to identify something and see the benefits, the positives. I was talking with a guy just yesterday, and he's experienced pain from the time he was young, 6, 7. When he was born, he was 14 pounds. Ladies, natural, I'm sorry, not natural, meaning there was not a pain, not an epidural, but vaginal delivery, 14 pounds, biggest baby, held the record at a hospital here in Utah for several years, until later there was one a little bigger. He's 14 pounds when he was born. By the time he was 7, he was way bigger than most people his age, and he had some growth plate stuff and some juvenile arthritis, and every day of his life there's a level of pain. And he told me, he said, I'm grateful for the pain because I've learned how to work through it and how to be better because of it. And that's an important principle. Whoops, sorry, the video started sooner than I want. So what I'd like you to do is take this 30-second video. You will control your audio, but we have that. I'm going to do a screen share right now. And what I want you to do is I want you to be thinking about what Michael Jordan says here. Now, this isn't the part where he talks about peak performing athletes. This is something different that Michael teaches us that has so much to do with gratitude. So we'll talk about that. And thank you for whoever put in the chat that they just read The Orange Frog by Sean. I would love to know any of your ahas that have come to you from that. And so you can share that in the chat, or maybe a little later you can say, hey, anyway, he has some great, I love whoever said, I have a gratitude jar, puts slips of paper and things I'm grateful for. When it gets full, I take them out and reread them. Great idea. Love it. Again, I love the chat stuff. I'll try and keep up with that. Now, the purpose here is that by the time we're finished, you understand how to do gratitude and why gratitude is important, and that you have some tools that you can take away. As you watch Michael Jordan, I want you to think about what your takeaways are from the things that he's about to share. This is a 30-second night commercial that he shared a long time ago. And in this commercial, he shares some things that I think are powerful, that really have a lot to do with gratitude. And so this is called Michael Jordan, I've Failed. So here we go. Let me get rid of this. Hopefully y'all can see the big black box. And let me let these people in. Okay, here we go. Michael Jordan. It's called Michael Jordan, I've Failed.
I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life. And that is why I succeed.
All right. I failed over and over and over again in my life. That is why I succeed. So here's what Sean says. Sean says that if we keep a gratitude journal, and as part of my gratitude journal, I write down the 3 things I'm grateful for that day and 3 reasons why. Now, some of you are overachievers, and some people have said to me, well, Darren, I want to do this faster. I want to do it better. Great. Do 5 things every day and 5 reasons why you're grateful. That's a tough challenge. I've done it before, and you kind of go, whoa, that's hard, because what happens is you go from I'm grateful for my friends to start naming specific friends. And the more specific, the better. And here's why. The connection in your brain, when you can identify why something matters, really makes a difference. And that's the psychology piece where you start to rewire your neural pathways. The other part of this, so those are the first 2 of the 5. Number 3 is exercise. Every single day for 21 days, some form of exercise. I'm not going to tell you what that has to be. I'm just going to tell you that as a mental health counselor, I can tell you that over the past 3 years of the pandemic, 3+ years, the people who have thrived versus the people who have really struggled, the people who did best are doing best through the pandemic, do the big 3. And I'm not talking about the 3 things we talked about with Sean Anker. I'm talking about proper self-care, proper rest, proper nutrition, proper activity levels. If you're already doing that and you want to go to the next level, take these 5-step challenges from Sean Anker. Number 1, gratitude journal. Number 2, 3 reasons or 3 things you're grateful for, 3 reasons why. Exercise. Number 4 is meditation. And number 5 is my personal favorite. And it's this. Every day, he says that you intentionally do random acts of gratitude or service for someone else. He said some days what he does is he starts by sending an email or a text that says, hey, I really appreciate you for this. Now, please do yourself a huge favor, ladies and gentlemen. Don't say I love you because. I'm going to share with you one of my treasured, most powerful truths, and it's this. You matter. And you are the single most important priority in your life. And when you know that you matter and that you are uniquely you, and Mr. Rogers is a hero of mine, and he said you're special just the way you are. No one else is like you. So please stop comparing on TikTok and Facebook and Pinterest. Yes, I said Facebook. I have nothing against Facebook, but so many times we let the world tell us who we are and why we are. Ladies and gentlemen, you matter. You deserve air as much as anybody else. You're not the most important person in the world, but you're as important as everybody else. So please understand that you have the opportunity to recognize your greatness and to celebrate your greatness. And we have so many people in the world today who are struggling with self-worth and value and self-confidence. Guess what? If I let you, and I mean you being the world, tell me if I'm great or not great, I'm that far away. I call it 0 to hero. I'm that far away of either being a hero, hey, Darren, you're the best counselor ever, or you're the worst counselor ever, because sometimes counselors get to say stuff that people don't like to hear. So can I just suggest to you, like I said, that you matter? And, somebody's asking there in the chats, can the 3 things be redundant? Can you be grateful for the same thing on different days? Well, sure. My invitation to you is, if you're going to write down the same thing you're grateful for, explain why that would matter different on this day as opposed to a day before. Because if it's the same thing, you're missing an opportunity to really dive into something and say, here's why. Now, if I was to say to you, hey, I'm really grateful that you're here. Okay, thanks for being here, right? You guys kind of expect that probably and think, oh yeah. At the end of this presentation, usually people go, oh, thanks, that was wonderful, yada, yada, yada. Tell me why. Tell me why this mattered to you. Tell me how I can improve. Those things are the things that really matter to me, because I want to be the best that I can for you. One of my friends says it's not about being the best in the world, it's about being the best for the world. So how do you do that? Well, you do it, 1, by proper self-care, 2, by developing that mindset of gratitude. Because here's what happens in our world. If I say to you, hey, thanks for showing up, you go, mm-hmm. If I say, and I wish I could make this more personal, actually, I'm going to make this personal to Heather. Heather, I want you to know how grateful I am that you're here and that you work so hard to let people know about the opportunities that they have to better themselves. And here at Blomquist Hill, we work hard to help other people be their best. I have one of the most amazing jobs in the world because I meet amazing people who want the world to be better, and especially their world. So when you start with you, like Heather has started with herself, then you can make the world a better place. So Heather, thank you so much. And to me, that means so much, because ladies and gentlemen, what just happened to me is I had a connection with Heather. You might think, wow, that's a little weird. But I really do appreciate Heather, not just because she shows up and does her job, but she does it well. And because she does, there are many, many people on this webinar that have an opportunity for their world to get better and to make the world a better place. We don't change the world hundreds or thousands of people at a time. We change the world 1 person at a time. It's that connection that matters. And my guess is that if I had just said what I said to Heather to you, and it was personal like that, you would go, wow. As a matter of fact, I would guess that some of you even had a feeling of, wow, that's, you felt something. That's why when you can connect the why, it matters. Now, for those of you that are in a place, and I just saw in the chat, can you talk a little bit more about meditation? I would love to. Meditation is a very, very important part of our life. And there are several forms of meditation. I will share with you one right now that is one that I use regularly. Now, for some people, meditation is a very pure thing. You got to go to, Eastern type philosophy, and this is how you meditate, and that could be it. If that's the kind of meditation you do, that's awesome. But meditation is developing the ability to focus on something for a specific amount of time and not be distracted by everything else. Why does that matter? Because today we're so distracted that we don't connect. The best way that I know of to connect is to be in a great place yourself, meaning mentally, emotionally. These are the 5 areas of mental wellness, and from Darren's professional opinion: mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and socially. One more time: mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and socially. And what I mean by that is, if you are intentionally doing something on a daily or weekly basis in all 5 of those areas, I call those the elements of fuel. And guess what? If your car has no gas, now I know some of you drive Teslas and these battery operated cars, which is awesome. But if you have no fuel, no battery, or no fossil fuel in your car, you're not driving your car anywhere. Well, think about your life. If you are empty mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and socially, you're not showing up for anybody. And that's why that old analogy that you've heard a million times of put your own mask on first is so important. Because if you're doing that, if you're doing proper self-care, then you can show up for the world in a different way. And so one of my favorite meditations, this one's really easy to tell you about, not so easy to do. It is very simply to close your eyes and start counting backwards from 10 to 0. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And you guys are like, well, I can do that. But how many of you, as you listen to me count backwards from 10 to 0, had about 50 other thoughts come to your mind? If you meditate and do that, well, one of my friends who teaches meditation said, here's one for you, Darren. And I started to do it. And guess what? Even though I knew what I was going to do right there, and I intentionally didn't tell you other than what I just did, is because I wanted you to be honest enough with yourself to go, oh yeah, I did think about something else. Or, my brain went to, oh, I got to write this down. Or meditation is the ability to focus. Now imagine if we all had that ability to be present with the people that we're with, to listen for feeling and connection, rather than listen to formulate my response and go, oh yeah, well, let me tell you. Or, well, this is what happened to me. How would our world be different? How would our world be better if we were all there? So that's one form of meditation. Another one is, and I'm going to invite all of you to do this with me right now. So I'm going to tell you how we're going to do this and then do it. And then I want you guys to chat and tell me what your experience was. Okay. So here's how this works. What we're going to do is we will close our eyes. Now, I tell people the only time you shouldn't close your eyes is if you're operating heavy equipment or driving, because that makes everybody else nervous. And if you didn't laugh at that, then your stress is really high and you probably ought to call Blomquist Tail and we'll see if we can help you out. I'm joking a little, but that's a silly joke. But notice if you didn't connect to that your stress or your level of self-care, your self-care might not be great. Your stress might be high. Guess what? When we do proper self-care, the stressors in our life are less. Gratitude done properly is one of the greatest forms of self-care. Now, this meditation that we're going to do, very simple. We're going to close our eyes. We'll breathe in through our nose, nice and slow. It's better if you can hear it. We'll hold that for just a couple of seconds, and then we'll exhale slowly through our mouth. We'll repeat it 5 times. If you have to breathe a little sooner or exhale a little sooner than what I call out in the cadence, that's okay. But again, hopefully you're not driving. If you are, don't close your eyes. Everybody else, close your eyes. Take a big deep breath in through your nose. Hold that for just a couple of seconds, and then slowly exhale through the mouth now. Now in through the nose. And exhale. In through the nose. Out. In. Out. In. And out. In the chat, tell me how you feel. Or unmute yourself and talk to me. You guys all went to sleep. See how great that was? I see nothing in the chat. That's why I say that. What people tell me they experience in that little mindfulness lowers my BPM. Absolutely. Relaxed, peaceful, more relaxed. Everything seems clearer. Good. Relaxed, calm, centered, grounded. When I'm working with people who are struggling with anxiety or just having a lot of stress, I will tell them to do that every half hour. Now, it's interesting to me that every time I do that, every 15 minutes, I've had people do it every 15 minutes. I've done it every 15 minutes throughout the day. You guys want to increase your productivity? There's a great tool here. You set your alarm to go off every 15 or 20 minutes. When the alarm goes off, you ask yourself, am I a positive or not so positive place? If you're positive, then go ahead and take your 5 mindfulness breaths. If you're in a negative place, exercise gratitude. What am I grateful for and why? Now, one way to do that is to identify, what did I do in the last 15 or 20 minutes that was positive, or what happened in the last 15 or 20 minutes that I'm grateful for? And then do your mindfulness breathing, and then look at the next 20 minutes and say, what's my objective for the next 20 minutes? And people say, really, Darren? Now think about it. You guys said that you were refocused. You were relaxed. You were clearer in your mind, right? We just flooded your frontal cortex with oxygenated blood. You're thinking better. It is a proven fact. I teach my students this all the time. I tell them, remember mindfulness breathing as I hand out the quiz or the test. When you do mindfulness breathing before you take a quiz or a test or do something that requires a lot of thought, you actually will do better. Test scores are better all the time because of that. Very simple, but very profound. Now, I told you I was going to share with you a pattern. Dr. Paul Jenkins shared this with me. So I'm going to do a screen share really quick and show you this idea. Now, this is a workshop that I intend to do later. So I'm going to go really quickly and just identify some things that help us to understand the why and how gratitude really does make a difference. Now, imagine that you are where I was a couple of years ago. I was driving home from California. Oops, let me erase that. I'm driving home from California, and I broke down on the side of the road. And I'm broke down on the side of the road. I'm 22 miles from Cedar City, and I'm about 22 miles from St. George. And that is, ladies and gentlemen, what it is. Now, in that moment, I want you to ask yourself, is there something that could be better than where you're at? The answer to that is yes. Is there also something that could be worse? Yes. Now, if you are interested in finding about, like I said, this is a whole workshop all by itself, but notice that when I identify what is, I broke down 22 miles from Cedar City, and I look at what is better, it feels worse. Man, it'd be better if the car didn't break down. It'd be better if we broke down in Cedar City. It'd be better if we flew instead of driving on our vacation, whatever. But notice that where we're at, by the way, what is always in between better or worse. But it's a fact, that's where we are. So when we focus on what is better, it actually feels worse. Now, this is a process called evaluation. Okay? An evaluation just is a simply measuring and saying, okay, where am I? Now, notice that if I look at what would be worse, what would be worse than being broke down 22 miles outside of Cedar City? How about broke down in Death Valley, which I had come through not too far before that, few hours, about 6-ish. The big thermometer there in Death Valley was either broken or it was hotter than 130 degrees because that's where the thermometer stops. And I promise you, I was way, way happy that I didn't break down in Death Valley because that's a long ways from where I wanted to be. Okay. Now, notice that when you focus on what would be worse, all of a sudden what is feels better. This is where gratitude really makes a difference, because if I can identify why I'm in the place. Let me give you another reference. There's a guy by the name of Kevin Clayson. He's amazing. And he wrote a book called Flip the Gratitude Switch. And he says, and the reason that I'm jumping back and forth here, ladies and gentlemen, is because I want you to hear this in a couple of different ways. Sometimes our brains go, I don't get the what is and what's better and what's worse. He says that in the moment, if we can identify the frustration, his little formula, FLIP, find the frustration. Well, the frustration is that I'm broken down. Then he says, look for the awesome. Well, the awesome is that I'm 22 miles from Cedar City, and that is so much better than being broke down in Death Valley, right? Now, all of a sudden, I'm grateful for what is. If I can identify why that matters to me, then I now have power to go into what is called the creation phase. And again, Kevin and Paul, good friends of mine, they both have very similar ideas. And I share both of these tools with you because some people go, oh, this works better for me. Okay, either one. Paul's a YouTube sensation. He's written a book. Kevin also has written a book. He does a lot of public speaking as well. Now, in the creation phase, we can identify what is. And as soon as we say, hey, what is and what would be better, we can use this energy that we just got from gratitude to say, what do I want to do? What action can I take to make things better? Well, interestingly enough, when I do the action that makes things better, I feel better. Now, in the creation phase, if I can identify what's worse, it doesn't feel good because action comes from this thing. Now, let me finish. I'm going to stop this share really quick. Again, that's a workshop for another day. But what I want you to do is identify what actually connects to you. So Kevin says, if we can, F, find the frustration, 2, look for the awesome, Paul would say, what's worse than where I'm at, and then install gratitude. Why am I grateful for the place that I'm in? When that client came to my office, he said, I'm probably the most depressed, anxious person, most depressed, anxious, grateful person on the planet. And I helped him identify why he was grateful for the place he was. And he started doing exactly what we've talked about today. Now, we've shared 3 different, I'm going to finish Kevin's little model here for you, because when we install gratitude, if we've identified our frustration, that's the evaluation phase that Paul talked about. If we then look for the awesome in our situation, we're not looking for awesome things if we've been abused or if we're going through a really tough time or we just got fired. But can I look for the awesome? Now, ladies and gentlemen, I got fired. several years ago, and I wouldn't be here today if I wouldn't have gotten fired then. And it took me a while to identify, hey, what's my frustration? I didn't even know the flip the gratitude switch. I didn't know this formula then. I hadn't even worked with Dr. Paul at the time. And so I didn't know these things. I just kind of muddled through, and I'm grateful because it opened my mind to say, hey, what could be better and what am I going to do? So Kevin says we find the frustration. We look for the awesome in our situation. What things are awesome about where we're at? What opportunities did we have? Viktor Frankl said, as I started treating the guards in Auschwitz humanely, seeing them as people, he said they started treating me different. Notice that he couldn't change them, but he could change what he did in his engagement with them. Install gratitude. And the last is power up with gratifuel. It's exactly what Sean's talking about. When you can identify 3 reasons why something is good, it will change your life. Now, I want to share another story, one that's very familiar to a lot of people here in Utah. There's a young lady by the name of Elizabeth Smart. You may remember that she was abducted from her home at knife point, marched up the hill. She was there, I believe, for 9 months, and she was tied up and chained up and raped, sometimes multiple times, and that's her story, and it was hard. But she talks about the fact that when she identified why she was grateful for the things that she could control, that it gave her the power to orchestrate her escape. Ladies and gentlemen, you probably have experiences in your life of really tough things. Now, please don't compare yourself. It's not about comparisons, not, well, this happened to me and this happened to me. I can tell you that one of the most influential moments of my life was when my doctor told me that I had acute lymphoblastic leukemia and there was no known cure. Now, don't worry, I'm cancer now. This is 1985. And he told me, Darren, you've acute lymphoblastic leukemia and there's no known cure. And it's the worst type of blood cancer that a 17-and-a-half-year-old male can have. I'm giving you some specifics because in the moment they didn't know what to do. And he pointed to the page from the motocross magazine of the motorcycle that I had purchased 2 weeks earlier. And he pointed to that page and he said, and we don't do that. And he started telling me all the things that cancer patients don't do. And I held up my hands and I said, Doc, don't tell me the things I can't do. Tell me the things I can. I said, I'm supposed to be in Phoenix on Saturday. It was Tuesday afternoon. I had no idea what this really meant to me, and that 4 years of chemotherapy and radiation would literally change my life. And I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy unless they could have an experience like I did. In those 4 years of chemotherapy and radiation, I came to understand being grateful for the little things in life, being grateful for the fact that I had caring doctors and nurses. And I'm so grateful for any of you who are medical professionals, because you literally changed my life. But Dr. O'Brien said something to me, and he said, Darren, if anything will save you, your attitude will. And guess what? I learned that is not the whole truth, because attitude without action will not change the world. Ladies and gentlemen, you are absolutely amazing. And I'm so grateful for you taking time to be here today. I would love to know about your journey and how gratitude and finding your why makes a difference in your world. And I said, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, the experience that I had, unless they could have an experience like I did, which was that I came to value life. I remember I would come in, this is before HIPAA, because I would come into Primary Children's Hospital. I'm so grateful for those people and the people at the U. Those were the 2 hospitals then that I was treated at. Later, I had the opportunity to work with people at Huntsman. I know that we have some of those people probably in this group right now. And I would come in and they would say, Darren, we have a family that was just diagnosed with leukemia, and these little kids who couldn't tell mom and dad when I take this medicine, it feels like this. Moms and dads would ask me when they take this medication or when this procedure happens, what is that like? And I came to know in those moments that the connection that we have with people means so much. And I remember that one of my friends, a young lady who was a warrior for life, she relapsed. That's never a good sign. And, they did everything they could to help her. And I say that she won the battle. She lost the fight to cancer, but she won the battle in life because she lived so beautifully. And there I was standing at her casket and thinking about the impact that she had had in my life and truly being grateful for the relationship that we had. And at the foot of the casket, so standing right there is her little brother. He had seen me many times. I knew him, and I'm not giving details of names here for very purposeful reasons. But he's standing there and he's looking at me and he's looking at his sister and he's looking at me and he's looking at his sister. And then he asked me a question, ladies and gentlemen, that changed my life. He said, "Why are you here and she's not?" That's the question I want to ask every one of you. Why are you here? My answer really doesn't matter to you. Your answer does. Why are you here? What is it that you are here to do that no one else can do? Because I promise that this young warrioress had made a significant mark in my life and the lives of all of the people who knew her. You are no different. And gratitude is one of the greatest tools that we can have to help us be in a better place, to live lives of significance. And if you're not in the place that you want to be, I encourage you, I invite you to take this information. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know that we're here. We provide these seminars, these workshops for the entire population. Anybody can join in. Your organization loves you and appreciates you enough that they offer these services to you, and what a great blessing that is. So if you're in a place where you need a little bit of help, you need somebody to say, "Hey, can you help me find gratitude in this situation? Can you help me identify where I'm at and what options?" Because remember, that's the thing that Dr. O'Brien said to me. "Darren, if anything will save your attitude, will." I said, "Don't tell me what I can't do, tell me what I can." He started to tell me. It's amazing to me that he switched. And in the end, 4 years of chemotherapy and radiation changed my life for better. Some people say to me, "Oh, but Darren, cancer's so brutal, it's so hard," and it is. But I want to share with you that in that moment, one of the things that literally changed my life is that almost the same time that I was diagnosed with leukemia, I had a friend that was diagnosed diabetic. And I say, and again, I respect anybody in your journey, wherever you're at, but I say, my friend got a life sentence. I got 4 years of chemotherapy and radiation, and it changed my life forever. As long as he lives until he graduates from mortality, he's going to check his blood sugars every day and take insulin. And you know what a great blessing that we have the technology and the medical ability and knowledge to deal with stuff like that. And I'm just grateful that my experience was 4 years and a different kind of life sentence, if you will. And so identify what you can do. Notice that that's where the power comes in creation, that model that we talked about with Paul Jenkins, and flip the gratitude switch. And even in Sean Aker's 5 steps, the 21-day happiness advantage challenge, the reason they work is because the principles are the same. When you can identify what you can do, you can choose to exercise, whatever that looks like for you. You can choose to write down the things you're grateful for. You can choose to meditate. You can choose to be kind and intentionally kind to other people. And notice what happens. Ladies and gentlemen, when I write those notes or emails, sometimes I do handwritten notes, sometimes I do emails, sometimes I do text, but every time as I identify to someone why that matters to me, I feel the connection. I want you to know that you matter. This is a great time for you. And I want you to know that in this time of year, there's no better thing that I can think of that you could do. Now, between now, if you started today and go 21 days, that puts you right to the end of November. If you do the happiness advantage for 21 days and you start identifying what you're grateful for and why, you start sharing with people why they matter to you. And again, don't say, I love you because. I'm grateful for you because. Now, different seminar. Hopefully we do this workshop sometime in the future again as well. It's the workshop on love. Ladies and gentlemen, I love you. And you might think, whoa, can you say that? Yeah. Because when you understand what love really is, love is doing the best thing for others. That will always be the best thing for you. If we're on the plane together and I'm in the exit row, which is where I'm likely to be if we're on the plane together, and the mask falls from the compartment in front of our faces, and I don't secure my mask, I didn't do the best thing for you. Because my friend's a commercial pilot. I asked him one day, if the mask fall from the compartment, are we going to emergency land? His answer was, yep, almost certain. And so if I jump up and I start putting your mask on and I get 4 or 5 masks on, if I got a full breath of air before the pressure in the cabin was gone, and I finally realized, well, I'm getting lightheaded, I had better head back to my seat. If I'm passed out in the aisle, I didn't help any one of you. I mean, maybe people would say, well, yeah, but you put my mask on. Well, you could have put your own mask on. Ladies and gentlemen, put your mask on. Start with gratitude. Start with self-care. Proper self-care is self-interested, not selfish. And when we do proper self-care, we're in the best place to serve others. Gratitude matters, ladies and gentlemen. So you have an opportunity to take the information that you have to share it with other people. Why? Because when you share it, you own it. Now, if I passed out in the aisle, that means I'm not there to open the exit door. And that means that if we're all on the same plane together, and I promise we are, even though we're not going on any great vacation right now, think about this. We are fellow travelers. And if I'm passed out in the aisle, you now have a choice, Mandy. You have to decide whether you step on Darren, whether you step over Darren, or you drag my sorry backside off the plane after somebody else does what I said I would do. Now, my suggestion to you is that if you only do one thing today, that you choose that one thing. Maybe you're going to write down 3 things that you're grateful for and why. Maybe you're going to, share this with somebody else. Maybe you're going to do the 21-day happiness advantage. Maybe you're, I don't know. It doesn't matter. I just invite, maybe you're going to do proper self-care, proper rest, proper nutrition, proper activity levels. Because if we're in a situation that somebody only is focusing on negative, or we share something with somebody that's positive, guess what? The number one motivating force on the planet is positive reinforcement. And it is the thing that will change people. And I choose to invite people to be positive. I choose to help people identify what is positive about whatever situation they're in. And when they do that, then their life changes. And so sometimes one of the best things that we can do is get another voice, because sometimes they won't hear ours. And so, that's where coaching, counseling, mentoring really comes in. And I want to respect your time. So if you're in a situation, ladies and gentlemen, where you need some of that, we've never been in a better situation. We have better information. We have better access to information. And so find ways to do that. If I can have any help for you, if I can offer any help, send me an email, dj@blomquisthale.com. We have tons of workshops on YouTube. Maybe that's a way that you can help people or help yourself if you need to. Dr. Paul Jenkins, I mentioned him earlier. He's got a YouTube channel. He's crushing it because he really wants to make a difference in the world, and he is. There are hundreds of thousands of people who have seen his. I don't get any benefit from that except that we make the world a better place. Ladies and gentlemen, why are you here? You matter. Please, please take care of yourself first. Do proper self-care. Recognize that you are lovable because you exist, not because of something that you did or don't do. And know that I'm grateful for your life. And I'm grateful to be travelers in this world together. So go out and make it a better day. Choose gratitude, choose happiness, and know that you matter. Thank you.